Algebra Unit 4, Lesson 3, Solving Multi-Step Inequalities, Notes 3. Multi-step inequalities can be solved by undoing the operations in the same way you would solve a multi-step equation. So what we're talking about is doing PEMDAS in reverse or SADMAP. When solving inequalities that contain grouping symbols, use the distributive property to remove the grouping symbols first. Solve the following inequalities and graph the solutions. Letter A. Negative 11y minus 13 is greater than 42. So two things are happening in the variable. I'm multiplying by negative 11, and then 13 is being subtracted from it. So I'm going to drop my wall and perform the inverse operations in reverse order, so SADMAP. I see subtraction, so I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to add 13 to both sides. Again, showing my work immediately down the page. Negative 13 plus 13, well, that cancels. The sign stays the same. 42 plus 13 is 55. Y is being multiplied by negative 11, so I'm the opposite and divide by negative 11. These cancel. Negative 11 divided by negative 11 is 1, so Y. And on this side, 55 divided by negative 11 is negative 5. And whenever you divide an inequality by a negative, that step right there, the rule is you have to flip or change the direction of the inequality. So it was greater than, now it is less than. On my number line, I'm going to pick three numbers. Let's say we do negative 10, negative 5, and 0. Equidistant between each one. This is 5, this is 5. So I'm allowed to do those three numbers. Because of this less than symbol, we have an open circle at negative 5. And I need y is less than negative 5. So any numbers that are less than negative 5 will work, which means open circle and the arrow pointing to the left. Letter B, 8d plus 7 is less than or equal to negative 4d minus 17. Alright, so same thing. Now I have variables on both sides. What I recommend is you always look at the coefficients on the two variables. So I have a positive 8 and I have a negative 4. I recommend that you always move the smaller number. That way, in case you forget the little rule of if you divide or multiply by a negative, you flip the sign. Let's say we forget that rule. You'll never get them wrong if you always move the smaller coefficient. So 8d and negative 4d, well, negative 4d is smaller. I need to do it to the other side. So since it's negative 4d, I'm going to add 4d to both sides. Negative 4d plus 4d is nothing. So I get 12d plus 7 is less than or equal to negative 17. So I'm now at a two-step. D is being multiplied by 12 and added to 7. So I'm going to do the inverse operations. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So I get 12d is less than or equal to negative 24. So I'm going to now divide by 12 because d is being multiplied by 12. So I'm going to perform the inverse. So I'm going to get d is less than or equal to negative 2. And now here, I did not divide by a negative. It was a positive 12, so the sign, again, does not flip. If I was to start over and moved 8d to the other side, I would have eventually had to get rid of this negative sign here. So, again, if you always move the smaller coefficient, you're going to be in a better place and you won't forget anything extra needed. So d is less than or equal to negative 2. This time I'll count by 1, so we'll say negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. Again, I'm still going in equidistant between these, so I'm allowed to pick those numbers. Because of this symbol, I need a closed circle. Okay, and then I need d is less than or greater than negative 2. Less than or equal to negative 2. So any numbers that apply it would work in there. Anything that is less than negative 2 would work. So my arrow is going to the left. Letter C, just because there's a fraction, no need to panic. 7 minus 2/3 of x is less than x minus 8. So I'm going to follow that same rule. I'm going to move the smaller coefficient. So since there is no coefficient here, it's really a 1. So I have negative 2/3 and 1. So then negative 2/3 is smaller. So I'm going to add 2/3 x to both sides. My symbol stays the same. These cancel. So I'm left with 7, nice and easy on the left. And on the right, I am left with 1 and 2/3 x minus 8. So I'll do one step at a time. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So showing my work down the page. And as I do that, I'm also going to rework this. 1 and 2/3 x, that is, to me, is just gross. So I'm going to do the old-fashioned 5th grade maneuver. I'm going to multiply the whole number by the denominator and add the numerator. That would be 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5. And my denominator stays the same, 5/3 x. Right now, I'd see x is being multiplied by 5/3. So I need to get rid of that. So I could divide by that fraction, or the quicker way, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, refliprical. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm left on the right side with x, and on the left side, 3 times 15 is 45, and 5 times 1 is 5, and that reduces to 9. So I'm getting 9 is less than x, and then I just get in the habit, I always like the letters to be on the left side, just personal preference, so I'm going to flip that myself. So 9 is less than x, or x is greater than 9 is my answer. If I now graph that on the number line, I need 8, 9, 10. X is greater than 9, so open circle, and I need to point in the direction where anything is greater than 9 would be to the right. Letter D, we now have that distribution portion of the problem. 5x plus 2 is less than 2 times quantity, x plus 10. So the first thing the notes at the top said, well, we could divide everything by 2, but I'm going to get a fraction, so instead let's just distribute. So I have 5x plus 2 is less than 2x plus 20. Again, just multiplied or gave that 2 to everybody inside. Now I'm going to get my x's on the same side. I have 5x and 2x. I'm going to move the smaller one. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Alright, 5x minus 2x is 3x. Plus 2 is less than. My 2's here canceled. So I'm just left with 20. So I'm going to get rid of the addition here as minus 2, minus 2. So I get 3x is less than 18. Divide both sides by 3. I get x is less than 6. And that's my answer. So if I was to graph this, and I'm going to pick some numbers. Maybe I pick this time count by 2's. 4, 6, 8. Again, I'm equidistant between each of these, so I'm allowed to use those numbers. Just a quick check. X is less than or equal to, so open circle, and any number less than that will work, so I'm going to go to the left. Please try those next two on your own. On the back, part 2, write and solve each word problem. Be sure to define a variable when necessary. And that's the biggest piece. When you do define a variable, after you're in the habit of it, it's half the work. Alright, Connor wants to attend the town carnival. No important relevant information there. The price of admission to the carnival is $4.50, and each ride costs an additional 79 cents. So I'm going to go through and highlight one more time. There are several words that really help us to decide where the variable goes. They are each, every, and per. Those three words, and a couple others, really help you to tell you exactly where the variable goes. And each ride costs an additional 79 cents. If he can spend at most $16 at the carnival, rate and solve an inequality to determine the maximum number of rides R Connor can go on. Okay, so they already defined the variable for us. The maximum number of rides is R, so let R equal the maximum number of rides. Okay, so he's going to the carnival. He has to pay admission. That's $4.50. He also has to pay for rides he'd like to go on. Well, they're 79 cents each, so plus 0.79, and R is the number of rides, so 0.79 R. So he's got $16, so he can spend at most 16. That means he can spend no more than that, because he only has $16 in his pocket. But maybe he gets sick and only goes on one ride. He doesn't need to spend at most 16. So this whole pricing, what he spends, $4.50 to get in plus 79 cents per ride, has to be less than $16. If it's not less than $16, he won't have enough money to get on the rides. So there's our two-step equation. What's happening to the variable? It's being multiplied by 0.79, and $4.50 is being added to it. So I'm going to subtract $4.50 from both sides. So I am left with 0.79R is less than 11.50. Let's see how many rides he can go on. So divide by the price per ride is 0.79. Alright, so we're left with R is less than 14.56. So I'll round to the nearest penny. So R was the number of rides. So if we go back to the story, Connor wants to go on rides. Maybe. But again, he has $16. So we need to know how many he can go on for sure or how many he can stay under. Because again, the inequality does not mean equals to. It means less than an amount. So R is less than 14.56. Well, you can't attend or get on a ride at the carnival for 0.56 of the ride. They won't do that. So we're going to cancel that off. So it sounds like R is less than 14. So then this means that Connor can ride no more than 14 rides. Letter B, the length of a rectangle is 7 less than the width. The perimeter of the rectangle is greater than 26 centimeters. Find the smallest possible dimension of the rectangle to the nearest whole centimeter. Alright, so the length of the rectangle is set, well, we're talking about a rectangle, so I'm going to draw a picture. When doing a rectangle, the length and the width are just ideas of two different dimensions. It doesn't really matter which one's which. So the length of the rectangle is 7 less than the width. Find the smallest possible dimension. So I'm going to have we'll just use W equal the width. So then on my rectangle I have two widths. I'm just going to pick that side. The length, okay, this is important. The length of the rectangle is 7 less than the width. So W minus 7. W minus 7. Okay, there we go. We're looking for perimeter, so think way back to 4th, 5th grade. The perimeter is the distance around shape. So in this case, I'm adding each side twice. So I'm going to shortcut that. I'm going to say, so W and W. From adding those, I see two W's. And I'm adding the perimeter. So W minus 7 plus W minus 7. Well, that means there's two of them. So a little bit of distribution there. Okay, so now the rectangle. So the perimeter of the rectangle is greater than 26. So this whole bit here is greater than 26. Well, that's just the sign I named it. It's greater than 26. Find the smallest possible dimension of the rectangle. Great. There's my inequality, and now I can just solve it. I'm going to start by, again, distributing. So I have 2W. 2W plus 2W minus 14 is greater than 26. These are like terms, so before I move anything, I'm just going to add those. 4w minus 14 is greater than 26. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides. So then I have 4w is greater than 40. Divide both sides by 4. And I have w is greater than 10. And because it's a word problem, I got to go back and remember what I'm working with here. So, the length of the rectangle is 7 less than the width. Well, I found the width to be greater than 10. So, the length in this case is going to be 7 less than that. Alright, find the smallest possible dimension of the rectangle to the nearest whole centimeter. So, if w is greater than 10, it sounds like this dimension, anything greater than 10 would be 10.1 to nearest whole centimeter, so we're going to call this 10 centimeters by, and 7 less than that, 3 centimeters.
Letter C. Alex competes in 3 gymnastic events that are scored on a 10-point scale. Her first 2 scores are 8.2 and 9.1. Use an inequality to find the lowest score Alice needs to have at least an 8.7 average. Okay, so a couple things that jump out to me really first is we're looking for the word average. Well, way back from 6th grade, average is when you find the sum of all the possible values, and then the average is you would divide by the number of sums we have. So if we were to set that up, our problem would start with the adding of those scores. So 8.2 plus, second score was a 9.1, plus, oh, we need to find that third score, so I'll make that x. And to find the average, you would divide those 1, 2, 3 scores by the number that there are. And he needs to find it to get it at least an 8.7. So he wants to score an 8.7 or more. So this number needs to get us greater than or equal to an 8.7. If we drop the wall then and solve, I need to first get rid of the fraction, the division, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. I should then get, and I'm going to kind of 2 steps at once. I'm also going to add these pieces together here, 8.2 plus 9.1, so I can save some time. So next I'm going to have 17.3, again adding 8.2 and 9.1, plus x, I don't know what that is yet, is greater than or equal to. And then I was multiplying it to get rid of that 3 on the bottom here. I was multiplying both sides by 3, which gets me 26.1. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the most difficult piece, that fraction. Now I'm left with like a 7th grade problem here. X is being added to something, so we're going to do the inverse operation or subtract 17.3 from both sides, which gets us x is greater than or equal to 8.8. So because it's a word problem, we need a sentence or at least a nice heavy label. So the question is to find the lowest score Alice needs to have to get that as an average. So then my answer would be Alex needs to score minimally an 8.8. Alex needs to score an 8.8 or better, or more. And that's our answer. All right, at this time, I would like you to try D, E, and F on your own. D is another word problem that you need to make an inequality. They define our variable in that one. Speaking of, we never defined our variable here, so let's go back at letter C. Let x be the minimum score Alex needs to score. So I hope you can write that down. Okay, now some of my students have also been asking for, can you at least give us the answers so we know if our answers are right? So I'm going to start to add those in my videos. So we just did A, B, and C together. So your answer for D in a nice complete sentence should be something about the pants must cost $5.50 or less. So I'm going to write that here, and I'm just going to write a quick answer. You need a nice sentence. $5.50 or less. Letter E, the answer should be the smallest solution possible should be Y. Actually, the smallest solution possible would be 1. And again, you would have to find out the explanations for that while doing these last 3 on your own. Letter F, your answer should be -2. So please take as much time as you need. Rewatch the video if you need to, but I need you to complete D, E, and F on your own and check those answers, and they should be in a nice complete sentence for letter D. Good luck.